Hello, everyone. We just want to welcome you to the Hood Independent Podcast. Today, we're going to basically be talking about economics. And as you know, with our topics, we talk about political, religious, economic, education, social events, and then special events. So today we are into the third letter of PRESS, which is what we call it. It's an acronym P.R.E.E.S.S. So we're into the first E today, which is economics. And the thing we want to talk about today is something very relevant and it impacts and touches all of our lives is economics. Now, America was founded under a capitalistic system, which initially, when it started out, it was not a good idea or a good concept because capitalism was built on the back of slavery, which was not about nothing more than free labor. Everything that was gathered off the back of the slaves was considered profit. So under that capitalism system, um, it thrived under slavery, and so its origins or its beginning was not a very good one. But now, present day, the capitalistic system that we utilize um, is a good system because anyone could, if they utilize the principles and put in the time, the hard work, and the effort, can benefit from this capitalistic system. Under this capitalistic system, also, is economics, and economics is simply a concept under which individual persons can own his own business, create his own product or service, market it, sell it, and make a profit off of it, and start his business, occupy and run his business out of that concept. So under the two things that drive the economics or the capitalistic system, if you will, is supply and demand. And so to emphasize the law of supply and demand and how we come under supply, an individual has a product or a service that is attractive or that another person may want. And so he makes that available to them at a certain price. And the demand side of it is you want the product or service that I have created, and you are willing to pay a certain amount of money for it. It's called the bartering. It's a back and forth system. I have the product that I want to sell at a reasonable price. You have need for the product or service, and you're willing to pay a certain price for it. That's called the law of supply and demand, and that's how the economic system actually works. And I use the example, um, and in this, we also two things we're going to talk about under this economic system. It's going to be inflation, which is a foreign word to most of us, and understanding what inflation is and how it impacts and robs you out of the value out of your daily lives. So we're going to talk about inflation, and we're going to talk about recession. So under inflation, you could have, say, what would I say? You could have $100 in your pocket or $100 in your bank account, and come the end of the week, you decide to go remove your $100 from the bank and either go shopping, grocery shopping, and or um, to fill up your car with gasoline for the weekend. So you go to the bank, you take out the $100, you go to the grocery store, you're able to purchase 4 bags of grocery and fill up your gas tank with that $100. Now, how inflation robs you of your economic or your monetary value, how much money your money is actually worth is when inflation creeps in. You've got that same $100. You go to the bank, take out your $100, go to the store, and now the same exact food that you brought um, last week, instead of being able to buy 4 bags of grocery with the same $100, now you're only able to buy 3 bags of grocery. And you go to the gas station, and instead of being able to fill up your gas tank, now you're only able to get a half of a gas tank, half tank of gas. As we said, and now you're still dealing with the same $100, but that $100 buys you less than it did just last week. That is what inflation is. It takes the value out of your money. And there's a couple of ways that that happens. Now, inflation usually happens, or the devaluation of the dollar, is when a whole bunch of money is flooded into the market rapidly, decreasing the value of the money. And this is a principle as well. Anytime there is a shortage of something, it becomes more valuable, such as gasoline is now. That's why the price of gas is so high, because there's not much gas as we had just 3 years ago when America was producing its own oil and gas refineries. Now that has been reduced, and we're not producing as much as we did just 3 years ago. So now it's a shortage, and it's more rare, and the value of it is driven up. Again, it's the law of supply and demand. If you have a greater amount of gas, the gas becomes cheaper. If you have a shortage or less amount of gas, then it becomes more valuable. So let's use this example. When the flat screen TVs first came out in the 90s or 2000s, or just about in that area, um, when the flat screen TV come out, only people um, of means, or two-parent households, or people who had additional money could afford those TVs. When they first came out, they would run anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for a flat screen TV, because they were rare, and so the price of it was high. Then over the years, as they began to be mass produced and more flat screen TVs came onto the marketplace, then the price of those TVs dropped also. So much so that some people had 2, 3 flat screen TVs. Some people went as far to the extreme of having TVs in every room, because they were more affordable. But when they first came out, not so. So, and again, um, when they first came out, they were a lot higher, same product, but over the years, the price dropped, because there were more TVs in circulation. So once again, whenever something comes out in the market that's new and it's in short supply, then the price of it is driven up. And then when it begins to be more that comes into, more flat screen TVs coming into the market, the price drops, and we're still talking about the exact same item. And so that's the principle that we're going to be working from today. And so when all of this money, if you could remember back in 2000, March of 2020, when the COVID epidemic hit and no one knew what it was, a lot of jobs were given furloughs, including my own job, given a furlough and giving you the option to um, take off work, and the government at that time was paying people not to work, and you could stay at home until we get a handle on this pandemic that was going around, that was new to everyone, and a lot of people opted out for that and did that. In addition to that, the government also started offering the $1,400 stimulus check, which again was to prop people up or help people out economically until they could afford to get back to work, and when this pandemic was gotten under control. In addition to that, the government was also paying unemployment for people to stay home during the pandemic. And so all this money, hundreds of billions of dollars, was put into the market to help prop people up during this distressful time. And as I stated from the beginning, that when all the large amount of money hits the market rapidly, all of a suddenly, it devalues the amount of the money. And so people were excited about it because they were taking this money and the stimulus checks and staying home, and they deemed it calling getting paid, getting free money, where we know that nothing in life is free. And so even then, when those stimulus checks were coming out, for one, people that filed their taxes at the end of the year, you had to actually file that stimulus check as part of your income tax. So it was more like an advance or a credit, but you still had to pay for it. So as I said before, there's no such thing as free money. Everything has a cost or a consequence to it. And so now that that happens, it has devalued the price of money. And even so much so, again, that people begin to stay home um, after they start dealing with the pandemic. People were being paid money to just stay home in 2021 and 2022. People were just still being paid to stay at home. People figured out they could make more money staying at home, not working, than they could if they worked their jobs. Now, I never took the furlough. I stayed on my job during the whole time of that. And so then it came to a time of somewhere in August of 2021, somewhere in there, that they cut off the stimulus. Then people realized at that point, okay, now I need to go back to work because there's no more stimulus money coming in to me. And so once that happened, it created a disruption in the supply chain, number one, because people are not working to move these goods and services as they need to. So now the supply chains are backing up. Not only that, companies are now struggling to find workers because people weren't coming to their job. They were working, they were staying at home, getting paid to stay home. And I'm sure a lot of us experienced that within the past year or so, that some companies went out of business over the last year because they could not find anyone to work. Other businesses were short of workers, and so you cannot just buy what you need and walk out anymore. There was long lines everywhere that you went because there was a shortage of work, and you may go into a business that normally had 5 or 10 people that may only have 1 or 2 workers at this point. So there were certain places I know I went to, in the middle of the day they would be closed, or they wouldn't open at all that day, or they would close earlier than their normal working hours. And it's still that way even to this day. You had places that was open, and I won't give any plugs for any name company, but companies that would stay open 24 hours, all night stores. And then when this pandemic hit, and when it started coming back to normal, so to speak, everyone has a closing time now. There's very few places that are 24-hour operated stores anymore. One, because they did not have the labor to manage the store, so they had to shut the store down early. And so that's what happened from the pandemic. That's also what happened with all of this big infusion of money that went into the economy, and it disrupted the normal operations of business. So now, with that being the case, where we are now in 2022, the dollar, same one I was talking about you had before with the $100 concept, it used to be worth $100. Nowadays, that $100 may be only worth $89. So it's lost $11 in its value, even though it's still $100. What it could purchase, it purchases $11 less than it did before all that money was put into the market, which is called inflation. And that's what drives it up, and it takes out the value of it. Now, also in conjunction with the money being less, the $100 is now only worth $89. And then you have the shortage of gasoline that's coming in, that's driving up the uh, the cost of the gasoline. Even though the dollar, what it buy before, it now buys less, but the gas actually costs more. So you're losing your value in that. And so they have a thing where they're saying with people on their jobs that are working, now the inflation is higher than the amount of money that you're making, so you're constantly losing value, that your money doesn't buy as much as it used to, and consequently your pay is less than what it used to, because your pay is the same but everything else is increasing. That's another form of inflation. So as that continued to happen, the businesses look at this and said, okay, well, where I used to uh, need 20, 30, 40 workers working in my business, I see things are being more expensive now and I can't afford to hire all these individuals. So I'm going to lay off some people. And then these companies also, a lot of them, the larger companies would have purchasing agents who will go out and purchase the good or service that they need to run or operate their business. So now they've cut the number of workers that they need because they're buying less resources or less product, so there's no need for the additional workers. Now people are starting to be laid off from their jobs, and the businesses are tightening their belts because they can see now that a recession is on the rise. A recession, and the definition of a recession, is 2 consecutive quarters of low or reduced GDP, which is gross domestic products, the goods and services that are being created. So 2 quarters or 6 consecutive months of that. And that's an indicator and a sign to businesses that things are slowing down. They, because of the economy and the market has became risky, they pull most of their money out, because another definition of a recession is when people, business people and other people that have the resources and the revenue, take their money out of the system, which creates further a recession. And so now the person that was working is no longer working. Now he can no longer buy food, buy gas, pay his bills, do the things he needs to do in his own daily life and activities. So now his life has become more difficult, because a recession is a contracting or tightening of resources and activities, and it affects everyone's life. So as businesses continue to do that, um, the recession gets worse and worse. And then even the person that is working, that's fortunate enough not to be laid off, he also realized that things are getting tight, things are getting higher, his pay is getting lower, and so all that discretionary spending I used to do, I'm going to have to cut back on it. Say, for example, like on Fridays, we used to go out to a dinner and a movie or something on a weekly basis. Well, now that I see that things are getting tighter, money is getting harder to come by, I may have to cut out going out for dinner and a movie every week, and maybe just go once a month if I go at all. And so again, that's revenue and money being taken out of the other economy, out of other people's businesses for the restaurant business and the food industry. Now they're experiencing a loss in money and revenue that's coming in. So they may have to lay off some of their people. So it's a trickle down effect, and it touches every part of our economy and everyone's life as well. And so that's what happens during the time of a recession, and that's where we are now. We are in a recession, and was talking about gas earlier. The price of gas has went down somewhat over the past 6 months, because people were complaining about the high price of gas. Well, that was done by the government, where they decided to stop producing as much oil, and as I said, under the law of supply and demand, when they cut the production of the oil, it caused the price to go up. So the government has what's called a strategic oil reserve, which is meant to be kept during the time of war, or in the case of an emergency, that we would have enough oil and the fuel to run our vehicles and continue to live our lives in the manner that we became used to. It's called the Strategic Oil Reserve. It held some $75 million. Now, over the summer from May of 22, people started complaining about the prices, and for the very first time, I remember it myself, First time ever in my life I paid $5 for a gallon of gasoline. Never ever done that before in my entire life. So my voice was added to all the other ones that were complaining about the high price of gas. A short-term fix that they utilized was to release the oil and the gas from the government's strategic oil reserve, which was meant to be used in the time of war, in the time of an emergency, to lessen the price, because once they did that, now it's more oil, gas in the market, then the price went down somewhat from what it was before. And that was a short-term solution. Now they've stopped pumping out of the oil reserves, and there's some rumors that they may start it up again, because as soon as they stop doing that, they, being the government, the prices begin to go right back up again. Now we're back at $4 a gallon gas at the time of the making of this podcast. So now they're talking about opening up again, and the danger to that is if we get into a war, get into an emergency situation where we're going to need that oil and gas, it's not going to be available in the amount that it was previously. So that's really a short-term fix, but that's really not the problem or the solution to the problem. What am I saying? So in all of this, I'm basically saying we are in a recession. People are being laid off. It's getting more and more difficult to make ends meet. Another example I would cite, last year, 2021, during the Christmas holiday season, Walmart hired 150,000 seasonal workers across the United States to work during the Christmas, Thanksgiving holiday season. This year, 2022, because they already see the handwriting on the wall and they're tightening their belt, this year they're hiring 40,000 people. And so there's 110,000 jobs that was cut by Walmart alone, because they're tightening their belt and they're preparing to ride out this recession that we're in. And so just like Walmart done, we need to follow the same example and learn how to tighten our belts, because it's going to get tough. And even with the price of oil and gas that is raising, it's not just the gas for your automobile. If you happen to burn natural gas or propane in your house for heating oil during the winter, the price of it is going up too. So you're going to see your heating bills go up higher this winter. You're going to see your gas price for your vehicles going up higher for the winter. You're going to see the increase in food prices and clothing going up during the winter, where your pay is still the same. So the pay that we're making, that $100 I was talking about, is not keeping up with the price of inflation that's taking $11 out of your $100. Now you only have $89. And so it's not keeping up, and it's going to force us to make some decisions to make sure that we can maintain what we need to maintain. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Again, I just wanted to explain that to you about inflation and recession, where we are in 2022, and how we need to tighten our belts to be able to get through this tough economic time period. So thank you for listening. Hope you found something from this you can utilize to your benefit. Until next time, God bless.